Listen, I probably would fancy Kiladangan, but Jesus, there must be a lot of hurt on the Thurles side from how things have gone in recent years. And you'd
So
be
where are they going to
expect
cash that in? It's grand to be hurt, like, but that doesn't mean you have the quality on the field.
they've got plenty of quality.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they're not a balanced side to me, right? So they've obviously got a very good spine, like at club level, having Paddy Maher and Rona Maher as your full and centre back. I mean, you'd think straight away, glorious. Then they played against Clonoulty the last day. Won it pulling up, I would say, to some degree. And Clonoulty played with one less forward, allowed Rona Maher to be free. Kiladangan are not going to do that. And he hit the world of ball and absolutely destroyed them. But it's from there on that I think there's problems in terms of balance, because Mickey Cahill is playing midfield with Stephen Cahill, and I don't think it necessarily suits Michael Cahill. And Stephen Cahill, you see him coming into the game when he's on the ball and striking the ball over the bar. He's brilliant at doing that. So to me, the midfield, I'm not sure if they present the sort of defensive screen that you would want. And then the forward line, as Owen Breslan mentions there, where, like, yes, Dennis Maher is a very combative player. I'd say naturally more of a back than a forward. And then Paddy Creedon, 19 years of age, I think he is. He's a good ball winner too. But after that, I'm just not sure there's enough of a ball winner. Whereas you look at the Kiladangan team, and they're just no one. You wouldn't look at any player and say he's kind of playing out of position there, or that's a square peg in a round hole, which I would say is the case with Thurles.
I would be assuming if they don't have a load of ball winners, that they will be playing a lot into space, and that Paddy McCormick would be trying to find grass rather than trying to find two bodies under a puck out. I'd imagine so. They've always been like that, though. Really, they've, like, obviously Redzer was there and maybe Lara was there and would have been played outside at different times, maybe. But they've never had a massive amount of ball winners. That's kind of what you're essentially saying is that we know they have loads of forwards who are really, really good on the ball and will hurt you on the ball. But will they be able to get the ball? That's always been the problem. And they've been ground out on different occasions. Kilcormac did it that day in Portlaoise. I think Ballygunner have done it a couple of days. That's one of the main reasons that they haven't been able to kick on and win the All-Ireland title. That many would say that they had the talent to do that. But, like, are Kiladangan that physical of a force in the half-back line? Or would they be that dominant in the half-back line, even if Thurles do have to launch a few balls down, that they're going to get absolutely cleaned out?
I just think they've got to just... Right, so Alan Flynn has been playing centre-back, but David Sweeney looks like he'll be back. He's been centre-back for the last few years, very good at mopping up ball, as is Alan Flynn. So they're unbelievably mobile. And because Thurles don't have lads that are necessarily going to put the hand up and catch puckouts, straight away you're not going to expose Kiladangan that way. Unless they bring Dennis Maher out half forward line, which they might do, and he starts winning a few puckouts. Maybe Pa Burke will come out to wing forward and win the odd one. But I see him staying inside. Now, if you give him room, he's going to destroy you. And like he did the last two games, he's going to absolutely stretch the net with fierce shots. But I just don't see that Kiladangan can be exposed on that puck out. I also think their midfield are more natural midfielders, in Ty Galler, who's very pacey, and Willie Connors, who's obviously been involved with Tipp. And notably, do you remember last winter when he was playing a lot for Tipperary? In the winter weather, his unbelievable first touch allowed him to play really well. I think that day against Cork especially, remember, it was monsoon-like weather. He was really good. Then in the forward line, you've got 6'3" Dan O'Mara probably playing in the full forward line. He hasn't been playing particularly well. He was poor against Upperchurch, but like he could do a bit of damage. Joe Gallagher's a ball winner. Billy Seymour is obviously a Tipp panelist, scoring goals for fun a couple of years ago for the under-21s or under-20s.
Yeah.
You've also got Sean Hayes, who has so much pace to burn from the half-back line, half-forward line. And I just don't know if Thurles match up well here. And they haven't won a county title since 2017, so it's not like the aura is there anymore.
No, the aura is definitely not there anymore. And I think teams have probably realised how they can get at them. I would say Kiladangan, like, on the flip side of what you said about Thurles, Kiladangan are a very balanced side. It's hard to look at an area and think, okay, we could really go at them here. They're very, very balanced all over. They've mobility all over. They've got... It's kind of... Even their big players are mobile players. They're not, big kind of cumbersome players. They're mobile players as well. They've got pace in every line of the pitch. They've obviously got, county goalie as well, which helps at this time of the year too. That he's able to find, obviously he's a monster of a puck out. He could put it down to the far 45 and a bit further, even at this time of the year. But he'll also be able to pick out a puck out anywhere out the pitch. Kiladangan can go along if they need to. They'll go through the lines a lot. I do see teams going a lot more direct. We talked about conditions earlier. There's a lot of work. Would just say from a sharp puck out now at this time of the year, with the way pitches are, there's a lot of work to get the ball into that scoring area that, if you really want to kill teams in around the D, whereas, Barry Hogan can just launch ball down there if they need to. The key is at this time of the year for teams not to know what he's going to do. They need to be able to go out short the odd time to keep the other team honest and pull them up. And then when they go maybe man-on-man, then they can puck balls down. The likes of Sean Hayes and a few others can contest them. But it will be interesting. Like, what type of a game is it going to be? If it's going to be like a real kind of high-scoring game where it's free-flowing and forwards are getting time on the ball, you'd imagine, not that would favour Thurles, but that you imagine Thurles put up a good score. But if I was any team playing Thurles, I'd be thinking, if we get in their faces here and force them to try and win 50-50 or 40-60 ball, particularly in attack, will they be able to do it? And they will not make Ronan Matter look like a hero like Clonoughty did. I just don't, that it just makes no sense to me how you would leave one of the best hurlers in the country free. And not even one of the best hurlers in the country, but one of the best players on the ball. Why would you leave him free? It makes no sense. Whereas I think Kiladangan would try and take him out of the game completely.
Yeah, and they might put Sean Hayes in centre forward and say, stand off him a little bit and go running for space and give Ronan that decision to make. There's definitely one other player that we should have mentioned that I haven't brought up just yet, arguably the premier forward that Kiladangan have, which is Paul Flynn, who's been involved with Tipperary the past couple of years. Now, there is talk that he's carrying a bit of an injury at the moment, but his matchup with Paddy Maher could be very interesting. And if you look at, like, when Clonoughty were at their worst the last day, and you know what, they made a decent fist of it as the game went on. They were at their worst when they went long and high, because obviously they were playing with an extra man back, so that meant that they were a bit shy in the forward line. So going high on top of Paddy and Ronan, etc., best of luck with that. That's going to work out really well. But when they put Conor Hammersley, who's a smaller, faster type player, into the full forward line and played nice ball in, measured ball in, they won a load of frees and they got their scores. So to me, you play a nice measured ball, which Kiladangan like to do. They're very good on the ball. And you play a lovely ball in front of Paul Flynn. Now, this is the guy who stood up when everyone else around him was probably pretty subdued in the county final last year. Remember when Loughmore started very well and maybe got a couple of goals didn't they get a couple of goals on the board early? Wasn't Paul Flynn the lad who stood up and dragged them back into the game?
He gets 7 points from playing last year's county final, was it? Yeah.
Something crazy like that.
Yeah.
I haven't even mentioned Brian Mallochny either, the guy who scored the winning goal last year.
Yeah.
So, but am I overstating Kiladangan here? Am I not giving enough hop to a Thurles team that does have so many players who've played at Tipperary over the years?
No, probably not. But you have an opinion on a game, and you're like, in fairness, you've been kind of calling Kiladangan from a long way out here. I do think it was interesting, right, with Tipperary this year. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but Paddy Matter was playing full back or in the full back line, and to me, it always looked like they were trying to find a matchup for him. This is just me, for him to survive in the full back line. They were picking a forward, like it was, let's say Patrick Horgan when they played Cork in the league. It was someone who wasn't going to murder him for pace. This is not to say that Seamus Flanagan is slow, but it was maybe Seamus Flanagan when they played Limerick. They tried to find someone who was a matchup for him. Whereas a club hurling here, you'd imagine that Kiladangan or Clonoughty, as they did with Conor Hammersley, that Kiladangan will try and find, the worst matchup for him. And to try and make him feel very, very awkward. I know it's heavy ground, but put in that nippier kind of forward that's going to really put him on the back foot if they get a ball. It's going to go with a ball and kind of take him on. They're not going to, I don't think any team is going to put, I wouldn't see Billy Seymour been in on top of him, for massively long spells and them horsing high ball in. I just don't see that happening. But, I just think Kiladangan will try and move him around. I think they'll go after the two pillars in defence. I think they'll try and move Paddy around as much as possible, and I think they'll try and take Ronan out of the game completely if they can.
I think it's going to be a really good game, though. I mean, I'm backing Kiladangan here and relatively forcefully, but I don't think there'll be more than a puck of a ball in it. So I think you can do that. You can heavily favour one side, which is Kiladangan, because they've also found a way to get through a load of tight games through this year. Like, look at the game that they had with JK Brackens. Obviously not everyone is tipping them to be winning the county title, but they won a tight game there. In the north, they won a tight game against Killarwan. They beat Loughmore, who they beat by obviously the last score of the game last year in the county final. They beat them just by 1 point, I think, in the original group game. They're just finding ways to get through all the time. And, as we said before, they've only lost one game in Tipperary Championship club competition since the start of the 2019 championship. I mean, that's unbelievable consistency.
Yeah, no, it is, in fairness. I'm just looking back because I remembered that Thurles had given them a fair hocking in a county final. It was 2016. Thurles 27 points, Kiladangan 115. That was their first ever county final appearance, so they'd be right in saying there's an awful lot has changed since then. The fact that Kiladangan have the monkey off their back, there will be no, not to say that it would have been anyway, but there's be no fear of Thurles whatsoever. If anything, they'll be sticking their chests out and saying that, we are the team now, and Thurles are the ones that have to come up to the mark, not the other way around. And if anything, maybe it's Thurles that potentially could have that mental, fragility maybe coming into this, because they haven't been in around the scene the last 2 or 3 years, whereas Kiladangan have kicked on massively. I think it'd be massive for Kiladangan if they were to win 2 in a row after the heartbreak maybe they had in recent years. And I do think mentally that they're in a position where they could do that. And I just think they've a lot of guys that can hurt you in different places. They've 2 or 3 forwards that could be off colour, as they were in the county final last year, and they could still beat you. Brian Mallochny, who was taken off quiet, came back in and scored, I think, 1-2, didn't he? Like, turned the game, basically. They can hurt you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Now, to be fair to Thurles, they have the best player in the field in Ronan Maher, and they have the best ball striker in the field in Pa Burke. Now, there's other lads who probably wouldn't be too far off in terms of ball striker. But, I mean, I'd stand there and watch Pa Burke just hit frees in the warm-up all day. He's just got a glorious strike.
Man, Pa.
So from that point of view, they do have quality. There's no doubt about it. But I'm just still, I think we're both just slightly edging with Kiladangan.
Depends what type of a game. If it's a real open game, Thurles will put up a big score. Now, Kiladangan will put up a big score as well. But I just don't see... I don't see Kiladangan allowing Thurles to play on their terms. I don't see them. They're very tactically astute side. They won't allow big massive areas of space inside that Thurles forward line where Aidan McCormick, Pa Burke, and these guys will be able to just move into space and pick off points by themselves. I just don't see that happening. I do think it will be a lot tighter than maybe we're suggesting, but I probably would see Kiladangan winning by 3 or 4.
Yeah, comments coming
in the heel of the hunt, as you say yourself.
In the heel of the hunt, yeah. Tony Kelly is unbelievable in winter, to be fair, and summer, obviously. So that's referring back to who are the players who really excel in winter. Obviously, tongue-in-cheek comment here from James S, referring to Billy Seymour. I'd like to see more balls from Tipp next year. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll see a bit more of Billy too. John Collins, North Tipp man backs North Tipp team. Shock. Kiladangan didn't show any great form, putting away Upperchurch. No, they started the game very slowly, but completely took over. But Upperchurch will be disappointed with their performance or their score conversion rate. So, that's a fair point. So I'll take you on that. But I don't think there's any great favouritism towards Kiladangan. I mean, why would a North Tipp man have Graw for another North Tipp team? In any other walk of life, you'd be saying he'd be rooting against the North team.
Yeah, there should be more hatred for the North team, if anything.
It wasn't me, says Kiladangan haven't been at their best this year, but I still think they have enough to get over the line. Shane, will you be at the Fingallians game on Sunday? I won't. I'll be down in Tipperary. Mark Corcoran, the smart money is on Kiladangan, but no other team in Tipp can catch fire like Thurles. Huge game for this Kiladangan team. This will show us if they're going to dominate the club scene. I'm not sure anyone is going to dominate the club scene in Tipperary. I think it'll be the way it's kind of poised at the moment. You could have different winners for the next 4 or 5 years. I
think they have a nice age profile to be there or thereabouts for the next 4 or 5, 6 years, I'd say. And it would be a dangerous prospect for everybody else if they did win back-to-back, I think.
Raharney are a tough, dogged winter team. Bet Coolderry in 2010 and ran Kilcormac and Owler very close in other years and were unlucky to lose. Did they also beat Ballyboden?
I don't know that. Clonkill, member, drew at Ballyboden after extra, or drew at them in normal time and got beaten after extra time a couple of years ago in wintry conditions. So they would be another good winter side as well, definitely.
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember if they did or didn't. Maybe it was Clonkill. Another comment in here. Is this game televised? No, but it'll be on the Tipp GA stream. John Collins just saying, I've seen a pattern, speaking as a Corkman observing. I wasn't impressed by Kiladangan the last day. Both sides beat very poor teams at quarter-final stage, so it's hard to tell. Shane, will you be coming down to Limerick for a game next year? Oh, I more than likely will. Andy Ryan, Classic Barbers. Not sure what Tony Lanigan is touching on there, but there you go. Let's see. Ballygunner will deal with whoever comes through Tipp. Would you expect anyone from the B teams to make an appearance off the bench after getting knocked out? That could happen. I'm not 100% sure, Pádraig, off the top of my head, who from the B teams might appear. But I think Tipperary or Thurles' B team, maybe also Kiladangan's B team, they probably have players now available to the first team.
I saw Lar was number 22 on the B team the last day, but he's the sort of player that could easily move from number 22 on the B team to number 22 on the A team to coming in for the last 5 or 10 minutes. A lot of the older guys in particular, guys that maybe have dropped back a grade, there's always the idea in their head that they would be potentially used by the seniors, if their second team is out, if they're needed at the end of the year. So, and Lar or these guys, these older guys in particular, would not have been training for, May or June. They would be training to be just coming right here to be ready at this time of the year. It's a difficult one though, like particularly if you played a full B game, to come in then and try and play 10 or 15 minutes for the A is tough. I definitely wouldn't be able to do it at this stage anyway.
Kilkenny Ailes says, I hope the Locks beat the Shamrocks next Sunday. Shamrocks looking class though. They certainly are, and we'll preview that later in the week. We'll move on to Borris-Ileigh against Loughmore-Castleiney. That's on this Sunday inside in the stadium. I think it's going to be a cracking game, but you've kind of already touched on the fact that Borris-Ileigh may be down a player or two. So Kevin Maher, who's the centre-back for the Tipperary under-20s, obviously didn't have a great season, but it kind of tells you he's obviously a quality player if he's picked in that position for the Tipp 20s. He's out with his suspension for a helmet pull from the quarter-final against Mullinahone, which Borris-Ileigh won after extra time. Now, Mullinahone had only come up from the Seamus O'Reen level the year before, topped their group, but most people would have expected Borris-Ileigh to come through that game without too much fuss, but made very, very hard work of it. And even after going down to 14 men with Kevin Maher getting sent off, it took a late revival, 4 or 5 points down. Niall Kenny scored a goal, kind of led the team over the line. I'm not sure if Conor Kenny was 100% going into that game. Hopefully he's 100% going into this one. Brendan Maher had to come off with a knee injury. Now, Johnny Maher was interviewed during the week, I think, by local media.
Johnny Maher, Loughrea.
Sorry.
Pulling strokes.
So perhaps Brendan will be playing in this game, but I don't know if he'll be 100% fit. So there's 1 or 2 other injury issues. I'm not going to give away the ghost on Borris-Ileigh. But then Loughmore last week, they won a very low-scoring football quarter-final. I think it was
9 points to 1-5, yeah.
Something ridiculous like that, yeah. But they battled through that game, obviously wintry enough conditions for the game. And they looked very good against Killarwan. I mean, the headline from that was 4-6 from John McGrath, 4-5 of that coming in the first half. But Killarwan just opened up the back door and said, lads, do you want to walk through there and score a few goals? They didn't lay a glove on Loughmore. Now, Borris-Ileigh, obviously I've talked about too much long ball, but they're not going to let you walk through for 4 goals. So I think this game could be a bit of all-out war in like a very physical sort of game. Well,
you know something? The expectation is not usually on Loughmore. They're usually not underdogs in games, but the opposition is maybe, and particularly last year, we were probably talking about the opposition maybe more than them, and you're wondering about the fatigue in their legs from playing football and hurling week on week. This week, the pressure is not on Borris-Ileigh, particularly if Brendan Maher is carrying an injury, Kevin Maher is out, as you say. The pressure is probably on Loughmore this time around, and most people, I'd imagine, would be tipping them outside of Borris-Ileigh, will be tipping them to get to the final, just because the cards look a little bit stacked in their favour here. But when Borris-Ileigh won the county title, a lot of things were against them. I think they were the outsiders of 8 in the quarterfinals, outsiders of 4 in the semi-finals, outsiders in the final then as well. They were outsiders nearly the whole way through Munster as well. So maybe that type of siege mentality, or the old classic GAA we're been written off, will play to their favour again, because I definitely have it in my head that they're going to struggle this weekend. Maybe not struggle, but that they're definitely just a combination of factors probably takes 2 or 3 points away from them and makes things an awful lot harder this weekend.
Well, I suppose 2019, everything that could go right for Borris-Ileigh did go right. So by that, I mean the injury front mainly, because Shane Kenny, I think, did a cruciate that year, but more or less everyone else was available throughout the campaign. Whereas now we've kind of listed the different sort of injuries, and the team has kind of been changing most days. Even Kieran Maher had been playing. This is the guy who scored the goal in the 2019 Munster final against Ballygunner. He'd been playing in the back line, and then he ends up wing forward, scoring 3 points the last day. JD was kind of getting scores a bit more freely. James Devaney, it's not really happening for him at the moment, even though like he has been contributing in terms of like a goal might have come off some work he did, but he's just not getting into the game quite enough. And he wasn't brought in during extra time the last day after being taken off in normal time. Neither was Kieran Maher after scoring 3 points. So
that might be a good thing. Yeah, like
it might be the
they definitely come with a point to prove, like without a doubt. Like you would be fairly sickened, but the fact that the guys that came in, fresh guys came in and actually made a difference, you'd hope that would spur those lads on a bit more. They didn't get a second chance. This is their second chance now on Sunday.
And it's going to be tough for Brendan to recover the 2019 and early 2020 form when he's obviously carrying an injury. Like he got injured during the game the last day out, and he went up to the full forward line, and one ball went in, and he wasn't able to really go for it. So to be able to turn it around in 16 days and be hopping off the sod, you wouldn't be entirely sure there, you know. So I'm just saying things aren't quite working quite as smoothly on the injury front.
From the Brendan Maher point of view, there, it sounds like, this is just what I'm thinking. It sounds like he's going to be trying to survive rather than thrive, if you know what I mean. He'll be trying to, like, he won't be able to, you know, make that burst like he made in the Munster final on a loose ball. He won't be able to do those things. He won't be able to, when he does get a ball, to take on his man every time. He'll be trying to do maybe the safer thing. You know, you've been in that position. I've been in that position as well, where maybe you just don't feel you have the training done in recent weeks or something like that. So you have to take the safer option. And they need him at his dynamic best. So I definitely think that takes a nice bit away from him.
Yeah, and obviously Borris-Ileigh will use the twin towers of the Kennys for a long ball at times. And, you know, but to me, getting Jerry Kelly into the game, getting James Devaney into the game, you know, that's very important too. Obviously, Eddie Ryan has been hitting the freeze over, like he's a young lad who's just stepped straight in and it's no bother to him at all. Try and get the ball to him also and not go long quite as often. Because if you do, I don't think that Loughmore would be particularly perturbed. Look at the half-back line. John Ryan is a big physical club full-back who's always been very consistent. John Maher, former county footballer on the Tipperary hurling panel, brilliant at club level with Loughmore, former Tipp under-21 also. And then Brian McGrath, who's a coming back for Tipperary, driving out with the ball. So would you be overly perturbed if you were Loughmore hearing, hey, there's going to be plenty of snow coming on these deliveries? I don't mind.
No, I think they'd lap it up. And Borris need to mix it up, because if they're going to play that game with them, with that kind of, like, I've never seen John Matter all the way through last year. He was brilliant. He was just mopping up ball with his kind of lefty style. And Brian McGrath's after getting better, more exposure with Tipperary. I thought he did well with Tipp actually this year, and was surprised he didn't probably play more than he did. And that's a strong club half back line. And if Borris play into their hands, I'd say they'll rude if they play into their hands like that with long ball. But the default seems to be at times just to go long when they're under a bit of pressure, particularly as you've mentioned. Dan McCormack is one who does tend to go longer more often than not. But they'll need to be smarter if they're just horsing ball down on top of there. I don't see them winning that battle if they play it like that. Whereas if they try and move around the half back line a bit more and try and get the ball in over their heads, that would definitely play to their strengths a bit more. Like JD, there can't be high ball coming down on top of him, or if he's going if he's a half forward, if he's in corner forward, it needs to be a good delivery ball. It can't be just this big ball down on top of the corner back and the corner forward. It just won't work.
Yeah, so I think the problem for Johnny Kelly is that he's trying to figure out, how can I put my pieces together here, given who's out at the moment, and try and piece the team together. Whereas you look at Loughmore, they seem pretty even. They've Liam McGrath back this year. He's looking good. Evan Sweeney is still popping up with scores. Noel McGrath most likely going to play centre forward against Dan McCormack. What way will that work out? And then John McGrath, who do Borris-Ileigh put on him? Now, I'm not necessarily. It might be Kieran Cohen starting off in a big physical guy, but it might be Seamus Burke, because he's quite fast, he's quite aggressive, he's a good hurler. I think he'd probably be the most likely of the options available there at the moment. But you know, tying down the two McGraths and the other McGraths isn't going to be easy.
John is in different form this year than he was last year as well. But looks at things, looks like he's got a pep in his step, and just even the instinct for that goal at the start of the quarter final last day, just to have he seems to have his natural instinct back a bit more and that bit more confidence, and that's definitely another worry for Borris-Ileigh. Maybe it's too simplistic, but I would look at it being, I think it'll be a repeat of last year's county final.
If you enjoyed this piece of content, please follow us on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the page, which helps the channel grow. And if you want audio podcasts, go to patreon.com/ourgame.